And we're live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the VlogCast. VlogCast that comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. The VlogCast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect when some people on Facebook told me that they were doing Facebook the right way because they were posting what they liked, and I was doing it wrong because what I liked to post was that they were doing it wrong because, you know, truth. Part of this is also to follow through with the old adage that sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I am known as Shujin Tribble all over the place. You can find me online under that name all over the place. I was born into a Roman Catholic family in Brooklyn, New York, raised on Long Island. I currently reside outside of Buffalo, New York, and I'm an unabashed atheist. Before we get to the rest of the introductions, as you can see there, we have a number of people tonight, so please bear with us as we get through everybody. Joining us from north of the border, the west side, Dallin.
Good evening, folks. Known online as Dallin, born and raised into a Lutheran household, but with a bit of a twist in that my parents never took it too seriously and always encouraged me to never stop asking questions, always think for myself, and keep an open mind. This attitude has helped me throughout my teenage and my adult life. And I was one of those live and let live kind of people until I started seeing what fundamentalism was doing, not south of the border, but across the world. And it was finally time for me to take a side, and I chose the side of reason, rationality, and, dare I say it, skepticism.
Moving to the east, Heretic Woman.
Good evening. I am from Ontario, Canada. I grew up in the United Church of Canada, did a stint in a Calvinist sect, which was really not that great of an idea. I've been an atheist for 25 years now, and I am starting to be an activist because we need to change stuff. So here I am.
Moving to the south of me, Joseph.
Good evening, folks. Name's Joseph. Born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, under a Roman Catholic household. Spent 8 years in the United States military, and am now living in Pittsburgh as an atheist of 12 years now.
Also south, Unrenowned Tech.
Hey guys, Unrenowned Tech here. I have a cold, which is why my video is off today. I didn't want to get anybody else sick through the live vlogcast here, and if you believe that, you probably believe in religion too. As you no doubt figured out, I'm an atheist. I'm also sometimes outspoken about anti-theism, as this show will definitely demonstrate today. And I come from a mixed religious background, but my parents always encouraged me to ask questions, and that is the #1 threat to most religions.
Okay. Also from the south, Talking Wallflower.
Hello, I'm Mike. I am the Talking Wallflower, as Susan said. I'm way down here in North Cuba, also known as Miami, Florida. I was as a Baptist. Fell out of that and went through basically everything that I could find down here, all the way down to the end. Decided it was all bovine meat, and pulled the whole living let live thing for a while. And very recently have come out as a very outspoken atheist as opposed to my usual, by the way, you're wrong, but it's cool sort of thing. So, here I am.
And please forgive me, everybody. I'm muting everybody out to try and help out with the audio as we're going along. Again, my apologies. Just trying to make sure that everybody is heard properly. Katie, let me just get you unmuted. There we go.
Okay. Okay, I'm from not quite as far south as Talking Wallflower, but I'm from Georgia. I grew up in the very southern tip of the Appalachians. A lot of fundamentalism, fundamental Baptist, Pentecostal, which we call Church of God. But I have to say, I just never really believed, and I wandered around for years among the so-called religious, not religious, but spiritual. And I finally gave up everything a couple of years back and said, I'm just an atheist. There's just no other way around it. So that's where I am now.
Thank you, Katie. Going across the water to Chris, and I can't find your listing over here, so I can unmute you myself. There you are. There you go, Chris. I should have you.
Oh, 1 second. Sorry. Sorry, just having some problems with echo on the audio there. What were you saying, Shijin?
Well, you can just go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody.
Oh, hi. I'm Chris. I'm from the UK. I was raised sort of nominally Catholic, but have been effectively atheist since early teens. And as I found out in recent years, more of what's happening with religion around the world are becoming more and more active.
There we go. And also, Joseph.
Hi. I'm Canadian. I'm originally from London, Ontario, and I was brought up in an Anglican family, and I was pretty into religion, but never really understood what everybody was up to, what everybody was doing, so I ended up getting out around 18 years old, and I moved here to Paris, France in 1989, and I've been here ever since.
And there we go. And I got the video back. There we go. All right, first off, of course, as I mentioned for everybody, this is an unusual setup that we've got because we have a very large contingent of people. And I'm expecting that it's going to continue to expand throughout the rest of the evening because we will be doing something that is admittedly a little bit for myself and a little bit for the community at large. But before we get to explaining about that, with apologies to Heath and Noah, well, 5 minutes on the clock. I think a lot during the week about what I'm going to talk about. And this is no surprise to anybody. I've said this on many an occasion. And as usual, I think about what I want to talk about while I'm at work, trying to think in between what podcasts I'm listening to, and I listen to a lot. And again, no surprise to anybody there. And as usual, the great God Murphy decides to rear up his ugly head and say, you know what? That's not what you're going to be talking about. So this week we're going to talk about, as an overall topic, the need for blasphemy. It's not just a matter of that blasphemy, as many people have said on many an occasion, is a sin with no one to be blamed against. It's not a law that has no one to harm, but it's something that we collectively as a society should not be barred from doing. Blasphemy is effectively talking bad about somebody. In this case, the fact that that somebody hasn't been proven to exist is immaterial. No pun intended. But that's the important part right here. It's not that a god, no matter which god it is, doesn't exist, because we can't, in all honesty, say that. We can of course infer it. We can go with the best case scenario and say that no god exists because none has come down and said, hey, look at me, God. Yeah, check this out. Fire on my finger. This is great. Ep048, still alive. But we can't say that one has been proven to be. Now, there are a number of gods that have been put out there. There are some 30,000+ sects of Christianity alone. And don't even get me started on some of the other ones that are deistic or don't follow anything, or that could be aliens out there in space. Doesn't really matter. What matters is what we can show actually is. Being able to say, I don't agree, and I think that that's wrong, and I think that that's stupid. There's nothing wrong with that. How many people would go ahead and say stormtroopers are the worst marksmen in any movie franchise ever? They die more than red shirts. Well, you do that at a science fiction convention, you can have a minor uproar, sure. But really, it's just going to be a pissing match between a whole bunch of people who, when all is said and done, really doesn't make a difference, and they're not going to come and firebomb your car because you talked bad about the red shirts or the yellow shirts in the later seasons and episodes or whatever. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that Paul McGann was or wasn't the Doctor. When all is said and done, it doesn't matter because the Doctor is an actor. It's an idea. It's a concept. It's a person that's written out on paper, sometimes with a typewriter, sometimes with a text editor, sometimes with storyboards. But it's just an idea brought to life, so to speak, by a whole bunch of cameras and film equipment, and video recorders and audio encoders and sound effect people, but really, who cares? Ultimately, what does it hurt if you say the Doctor really isn't half human? Who cares what color shirt somebody wears and whether they've died in every episode of every show ever? Doesn't matter. And if you go ahead and you make a photo meme about these kinds of things, what does it matter if you pass them out at a convention, on the street, online? How many people does it actually hurt? Are there going to be some people that are going to be upset and pissing themselves and moaning and groaning and crying themselves back into their basement? Sure. Am I equating people who live underground in a basement with people who get their panties in a wad because people don't agree with them? Yeah. Why? For a very, very simple word. Maturity. This is episode number 48. To sum up what has been happening in the world, I'm going to bring Joseph in on this from France. You are there in Paris. You know more than anyone else what's been going on. What happened this week?
Yeah, just about as much as you do, but let's just say I've got a feel for the local climate. You want me to go through the events, or?
The short version.
Right. Well, maybe it'd be helpful if I give a bit of background too, because this magazine that was attacked last week, they've been getting death threats since 2006, actually, because of their publishing photos of the Prophet Muhammad, and even a bit later. They published a series of 12. And yeah, well, last week somebody followed through on their threats. So they had an attack that we all watched practically live here, with 12 dead initially, 2 police officers. And yeah, 2 days later was the hostage taking, the double hostage taking. I don't know how much more you know. Probably everybody knows already, but yeah, that's basically it. And today there's going to be a big rally. It's going to be huge at Place de la République, which is in northeast Paris, and just people basically standing up for free speech and democracy and all the Republican values. So yeah, it's going to be huge. So I'll be going. It starts around 3. I'll be going and documenting the whole thing.
And in this case, 3 p.m. I assume, and that's GMT +1.
Yeah, UTC.
Okay.
Or no, CET. Sorry.
Close enough. Only because you are closest than anybody else at this point. Chris, I want to bring you in also at this point. Since you guys are just across the water, what has been the tone over there on your side?
I've mostly been following this online in conversation with Joe, and through Facebook, and I know a lot of people are very upset about what's happened. I've not gauged yet what the local reaction is in England to that.
That's fair enough. Guys, please forgive me. I'm trying to manage both the video and the audio simultaneously, because we can have so much background noise from everybody. If you guys could individually mute yourselves out when you are not on, that would be hugely helpful. I'll leave that over for you guys to handle. Please forgive me. If I had a way of hotkeying it, I'd do it that way. Even so. So just please forgive me. And all of you who are watching, by the way, live, of course, thank you very much for taking the time. The question and answer system, I forgot to announce, is open, of course, and running. I don't see anybody currently watching, but that's probably because most of us are here on the call as it is. So we'll work that as best we can. I'm going to take out the mute from everybody and turn that over to you individually. There we go. So you guys have got individual control, or at least you should. I want to... Wallflower, I'm gonna pick up with you first off at this point, believe it or not, because you are, and I do not say this in any disrespect whatsoever, you are the most random one of the group of us as far as to how you will say what you will say. So I want to get you into this to get your piece on it from what you've seen, what you've heard, because you're in the dark apparently, as to what you've heard, what you've seen, what's been going on for you since these attacks have gone on, and how it's been taken for you. And
if I could just ask, I think it'd be interesting if you guys can tell me what you're seeing about what went on over here, and
yes.
The contrast between the two, I think, would be interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking to accomplish over here. So, Wallflower, I don't show you as muted at the moment, but I don't hear anything from you at the.
Well, I grab a cigarette and drink some more coffee directly from the carafe.
All right, there we go. I apologize. For some reason, your audio was down, not muted, just all the way down. So your volume is back up now.
Oh, okay. So I didn't do that. That was on you. I muted myself when you were muting everybody. So, yeah, I can go ahead and let you know what we're seeing over here. I know that we have the national news channels, Fox News, CNN, all those people down here. But Miami has a slightly different approach when it comes to our local news channels. So the very first thing that I heard about this was immediately Muslims attacked the newspaper. Like, that was literally what this guy was screaming on the radio. Oh my God, Muslims have attacked the newspaper. And I didn't know exactly what happened until I went on Facebook and I saw from Joseph actually posting it up. And so I've been following it, not on the national circuit, but only on my local news sources. And most people down here don't really seem to give a fuck. Like, I'm sorry if this is supposed to be PG, you might have to bleep that somehow. They don't really seem to care at all because, well, how does it affect us? That's way over there in France. It's just some crazy people doing crazy stuff over in the land of where, well, they don't make French fries, but you get the idea. The local feeling down here is generally, so what does this have to do with me?
Yeah, I think that's...
So it's gotten a couple mentions on the morning radio shows, and I know that we've been getting streams, like our local Fox affiliate just basically switched over to the national Fox News channel for a short while, and the only people who really do seem to care are actually the kids at FIU that are going for international politics and stuff.
And make sure that we've got it all. FIU is?
Florida International University.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody's clear on that one.
I always forget when I say UM and FIU. I forget people don't realize that's University of Miami and Florida International University, the two biggest universities down here.
Yeah, and for me, I have a hard time remembering for myself that we need to make sure that those acronyms are spelled out for everybody ahead of time. This has been interesting, especially on the news side, very much so. So, Dallin and Heretic Woman, I'm gonna get you guys. Dallin, I want to hit you first in order to get because you are arguably the furthest away geographically from it all. What have you been hearing out your side?
Well, most of the news that I've been getting has been from a local news radio station, during my commutes back and forth to work. The overall feeling, though, is there is a fairly large Muslim presence living, like, where I live. I work with some, I see them. It's very multicultural where I live. And I'm seeing a lot of the backpedaling that we see from apologists all the time. They condemn it. They say it's not true Islam. It's, out comes everything to do with peace and love and everything. And, what was it? It was a couple of days ago. I was driving into work, and this imam, and I think he was from out Ontario way, was on there talking about how the days of Muhammad, or the life of Muhammad, was one of peace. And I actually found myself screaming bullshit at my radio at the top of my lungs. Overall, though, I'm not seeing a lot of that sort of righteous thunder and hatred towards it, but I'm seeing a lot of the apologist backpedaling that we see every time somebody like ISIS or some other group commits an act like this, where they do condemn it, but they still cling to their faith. They still hold up, the Quran and say, this is a book of peace, this is a book of love, even though, anybody with a skeptical mind knows that that's a crock.
Yeah, there's a good piece about that in a second. Heretic Woman, how about on your side? You are, of course, over in Ontario, which puts you quite a bit closer to the much stronger French contingent for Canada.
Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't been following on the news per se because I don't have TV the same, but I've been on social media more so. And some people may know, I also have done content for my friend Paul, whose show Quranify Me, and it deals with the Quran and Islam. So I've sort of have a few more contacts in that arena, and it's the same kind of crap. It's, well, yes, it was bad, but, it's still a religion of peace, and those aren't, no true Muslim, those aren't real Muslims, and that kind of bullshit. And just even worse than that are the not even Muslims, but people who are saying, well, you know, they were kind of racist and maybe they shouldn't have provoked them. I'm like, no, you know, people have got to get it in their head that a religion is not a race. There's no racism involved here. But two people that I follow that really hit it home for me, and one is Canadian as well as Ali Rizvi, and Faisal Al-Mutar, and they both write for HuffPost, and they both were on HuffPost Live recently, and they're both ex-Muslim, and they both say the same thing. It is not a religion of peace. If anybody who says it is not paying attention to the Quran or is just out and out lying, because the Quran has nothing to do with, you know, it's all about kill the unbeliever. So that kind of reaction in social media is rampant, and like I say, not even just Muslims. It's you know, non-Muslims that are like, well, we can't blame the religion and all. Well, what is it? If it's not the religion, then what the hell is it? Because they were running in there yelling Allahu Akbar, and from what I understand, they even called out the people by name before they killed them, because they knew what, you know, that those were the people who were blaspheming Allah. And my kind of quip I always use is, if your God can't take some criticism, then he is psychologically weak. And that just makes me really mad.
Understandable. All right, Katie, I want to get you also. Again, I'm trying to bounce as quickly as I can for everybody. For you, with the circles that you've got with all of this, what had you heard, and what kind of things have you been hearing?
Okay, I don't have TV, but I listen to the public radio station here, and of course, you know, I live in a really redneck area. If there's an excuse to hate somebody, they're going to jump onto it. It's just the way these people are. But I agree that this is not a religion of peace. I found out, I guess, in the last few weeks, there's no such thing as a benign religion. None of them. But with the with Islam, it's they're like a half-cocked gun. They're just ready to go off at the least thing. And you know, and I've had a really difficult time coming to terms with this, because I don't want to be prejudiced toward anybody, or look at anybody with this kind of attitude. But someone had posted a thing on Facebook that if you really don't like the fundamentalist in any particular group, then maybe you should look at the fundamentalists. And because that's where they're getting their fundamentalism from. And these people just any reason they can come up with. But for me, I don't care who you are or what you have. If you don't have a sense of humor about yourself, or even if somebody actually makes you angry, you know, just walk off, because it's no skin off your back. It doesn't matter. You know.
It's good. It's a good piece right from over there. Thank you. Unrenowned Tech, I'm going to pick up with you at this point, because you are, of course, much closer to the capital of the United States, Washington, D.C. So the news medias that you've got are going to be much more centered on what's been going on in that area. What have you got, and what's been going on around you for you on this? Tech, hold on a second. Let me check and see if your audio is down. There you go. I've got you now.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
hear you.
I don't tend to listen to the radio news too much. They in my area they just tend to play a lot of commercials more than anything. Um, on the television, they're covering about the same thing you would expect to find on those news websites, which is what I like to do. I like to visit the websites. I can filter out what I do and do not want to read about. And when it was happening, I actually had two news websites open, NBC and the BBC, because the BBC is going to be more up to date on the foreign stuff than our local news stuff is. And I'm following it and I'm watching the responses. I saw the video. Um, so I was actually using an alternative news source as my primary. Now, down here in southern Maryland, the responses from the local population have been, well, if civilians all carried a pistol, this would have never happened. They're down here, they're all about everybody should be able to carry a gun, and everybody should be able to have a concealed weapon, everybody should have a rifle, yada, yada, yada. To each their own on that one. But what I'm not hearing a lot of in the area that I live in is anybody saying, well, they deserved it. They made fun of Islam, they made fun of Muhammad. What did they expect was going to happen? I haven't heard any of that. I've seen that on the internet. I've seen that on Facebook. I've seen some really extreme, the fanatical feminists making comments like that. I've seen the Christian right, the fundamentalists saying stuff like that. But no, not the regular everyday people nearby. I haven't heard a single one of them mention that. And that to me is actually kind of comforting to know that I'm in an area where, despite the fact that we have a mixture of people who are coming over from, because we have a military base nearby, so people come influx from all over the place. But we also have our own little, what they call a SMIB, a Southern Maryland inbred population. I know it's derogatory, but a lot of them are actually proud that they're SMIBs. They all agree, Paris has similar laws that we do on freedom of speech, freedom of satire, and things like that. There was no right that those men went in there and started killing people, and that's about it for the local area.
Fair enough. All right, Joe, I'm going to pull you in at this point because you've, of course, got a different perspective. You've got military career background. You understand what happens when you squeeze off a trigger. So for you being much closer to one of the other larger cities, you've got a lot of NPR, National Public Radio. You've got a lot of the news sites out your way. You've got a population that you hang around with that are typically younger from the college aspect and such. What's going on your side?
Sadly, I'm currently, being that I'm on vacation, really haven't gotten any feedback from like the student kids and such like that. And for the last couple of weeks, I've been pretty sick, so I've been pretty much staying indoors and really haven't been on my computer that much. To be fair, my first hearing about this was long after the fact, and my initial introduction to it was finding videos that people had sent me of these the home videos that were taken via cell phones and such from surrounding rooftops. And those of you who have listened to this show before already know my stance on this situation. You shouldn't need me to explain it to you. However, I will build up on what Katie had been saying earlier. Take any 100. Now, this is as an American veteran with a Christian background. Forget the fact that I'm atheist. I was raised a Christian. I spent a total of about 3 years in Iraq and about a year and a half in Afghanistan. And I have spoken with the locals. I have at length conversed with them. And I can guarantee you that if you took any 100 Muslims, really any group, but for right now we're focusing on the Muslims, take 100 Muslims, and for the majority of them, 99 of them, you'll hear nothing but nice things. You'll hear pleasantries. The only problem is that one. That one at the end of the line is the only one with a loudspeaker and a friggin' machine gun. And he's, of course, drowning all the others out. And that's the problem that we have with this whole fundamentalism thing.
And that's exactly right. Now, that's the biggest piece of this whole damn thing. Because there are always going to be the radical fraction in any group. It doesn't matter what group. It could be about Bible reading. It could be about book reading. It could be about education. It doesn't matter what the topic is. There's always going to be somebody who is way out there on left field. And as far as all of you who might be watching who are Christian, get off of your goddamn high horse. And yes, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cuss you out that way. Because if you want to go ahead and say that all Muslims are wrong, and please forgive me, I had been taught that that's the correct pronunciation. I could be wrong. I mean no disrespect by it, because that's the pronunciation I had been taught. And if I'm wrong, I will correct it. However, those of you who are Christian are not going to go ahead and completely denounce the guys who are saying the end is near, I've calculated it out, and it's going to be in May of 3 years ago. Oh wait, I got it wrong. That was a spiritual death. The death of everything will be happening in October. Oh wait, that wasn't right. Oh, I guess I was just wrong.
I'll extrapolate for you, Shujin.
Sure.
Take the same situation that I had mentioned earlier. Take 100 Christians. And you know what? That one at the end of the line is going to be the one that's holding the sign that says God hates fags.
Or it could be the ones who are out there from the KKK. Or it could be any group is going to have their small contingent out there.
I seem to recall a religious leader, or it was a government leader somewhere in the States, who was saying that Christianity needed radical fundamentalists of the same caliber as the Islamic radicals.
And don't forget this guy at the end of the line. He's the one keeping all the other ones in line.
Yeah, the only reason why that one guy at the end of the line has his loudspeaker and machine gun is because he bullied all the other 99 out of their lunch money.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem. And I'm going to make a little bit of an odd comparison. I was listening with the little one to the wrap-up end of the year show for the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. If you've not listened to them, amazingly good podcast to listen to. If you want to learn about skepticism and science and all the cool stuff out there, SGU is the way to go. And admittedly, I'm a lot behind schedule because I'm trying to catch up on Barroom Atheist and No Religion Required because of one of the recent telephone calls that I was part of. I'll tell you about that another time. But they were talking about how one of the good things that happened this year. Actually, Chris, let me get you on this one in particular because this directly affects for your mass media. This past year, 2014, the BBC went ahead and ended its overall policy of giving equal time to dissenting views, thereby making somebody who was an anti-vaxxer on equal footing with somebody who was a vaccination specialist for 14 gajillion years, or a climate denialist. That is something that made all the difference in the world because there is a perceived expectation that if you're on, you are on equal footing. And they changed that, and they said, look, if it's not equal footing because it's completely radical fringe, it doesn't hold water, we're not going to do it anymore. Had you seen a change in the news reporting when this has happened through this year?
Yes, I've seen it. So I don't generally watch much TV, but I have seen it through things like the BBC's website, and at some points in the past, the BBC's commitment to giving a fair balance but were taking things to ridiculous levels because it was giving, you know, as you say, the false perception that homeopathists and ghost hunters and whatever were on an equal footing to, you know, the scientific consensus. And it's great news to hear they've changed that and are now looking, you know, at things more in proportion with what's actually real.
Understandable. And over on the Q&A system, by the way, Eduardo, thank you for listening in. We do see you over there. And Gaijin Japan, please forgive me. I am unaware of you, so I will, for the moment, decline your invitation. Please forgive me. It's more a matter of I have a lot of people on as it is right now for the show, and I'm looking to keep the groupings to the folks that I am already aware of. Please forgive me. It's nothing against you. It's just that I am not aware of what you would or would not say, your position. I don't know you, at least at this point. But if we get the chance of interacting a little bit more, I'll be able to better judge what, you know, if I should or should not bring you in. Again, it's nothing personal. It's the show. It's also a little bit of my own personal vanity, but you know, that's a whole other piece for later. The problem with the problem that we've seen with stuff going back and forth as far as to who should be considered worth the time and effort to discuss stuff with. Who am I going to hit? Katie, I want to get you because you are a little bit closer to the... earlier this year we had the debate between Ken Ham and Bill Nye. And obviously a lot of stuff ended up coming out from all of that. As far as to should Bill have been involved with this versus why bother giving him the time of day for Ken Ham and this whole big rigmarole, what piece of all of this kind of... I'm not quite sure how to ask what I'm looking for. See, this is the piece that sucks. By the way, those of you that are planning on doing a show for yourself, when you're doing live TV or live anything, live radio, it doesn't matter what the hell it is, if your brain suddenly gets stuck, you're screwed. Heavy metal, big time screwed. Okay, just keep that in mind. It will happen sooner or later. It's only taken me until episode 48 for me to absolutely grind to a halt.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce the Amtrak.
Completely crashed and burned. The idea of everybody's idea should be on a level playing field and everybody's voice is equal, I guess, is the place where I'm coming from on that one. Like I said, putting into perspective with Ken Ham and Bill Nye and the creation argument, what has been your perspective on that angle? Everybody's opinion is worth equally.
Everybody has the right to voice their opinion. That's, you know, our freedom of speech says that we have that right, and it's also a privilege that that many people don't have across the world. That said, with debates such as this with Nye and Ham, while I watched it, at the end I didn't see the real point because I didn't see the progress that was made. Maybe I just didn't see it. You know, maybe there was other people that watched it that were able to glean more from it than I did.
Well, I would say that is the point, and because I engage people on Twitter and Facebook regularly where other people will say, why are you wasting your time with them? You know, they're obviously never going to change their mind and they don't care and whatever. And it's not about them. Like Ken Ham, he's adult and he's always going to be an idiot because he doesn't want to learn. What did he say at the end? Nothing can change my mind. Great. But it's not a waste of time to engage him because there are other people who are going to watch that and who are going to learn that there is an alternative, and this is what reason sounds like, and this is what using critical thinking sounds like, and this is what it looks like when you talk to an idiot who won't allow themselves to even consider another opinion. So to me, that's where the worth comes from. That's the value of that kind of exchange.
And that's the piece that I want to hit. Yeah, Wallflower, exactly. I wanted to hit you on this one. Somebody says, it doesn't matter what you've got to say, I will never be turned from what I believe. That's where I wanted to hit you, because you, I know for well you got a piece on that.
Yes, I do. To directly line this up with the Bill Nye Ken Ham debate, there's one major thing that, and I watched this with a group of friends, a couple of them skeptics, one of them my girlfriend, who at the time was kind of on the fence, sort of deal. And the major thing that everybody in the group brought back from that was, if somebody is not going to have that open mind, when Ken Ham's only argument came down to, I have a book, look at my book, I have a book, this book here, I have this book. When it came down to that, absolutely everybody was just like, okay, well, can we like watch the news or, I don't know, the paint dry, because that is about as effective as what's going on here. But it really showed that, yeah, we all have the right to voice our opinion. When you want to have a conversation with somebody, however, your opinion needs to be able to grow and change based on information given to you. And just like in the BBC's got rid of their policy of giving homeopaths the same time as actual freaking doctors, it showed that some people's views, because they refuse to acknowledge anything outside of them, just aren't worth that time. It's a waste. When somebody comes in and they say, you cannot change my mind, and I have a big problem with that personally. If you come and tell me you can't change my mind, I'm going to do everything I can to try to change your mind. But when you're yelling at a wall, at that point it's time to move on. It's time to go, you are not worth the few precious minutes that I have on this earth.
And that's the point where I wanted to stop you right there, because you hit an exact perfect point. Unrenowned Tech, I want you at that point. You're dealing with somebody who doesn't want to listen, doesn't want to be swayed, is completely rock solid in what it is that they believe, bar none, and they're going to force that back down your throat. Where do you go? What do you deal with? Assuming that you haven't passed out.
Yeah. when you have somebody who won't listen to what you have to say, there's no use to talk to them. It's like talking to a brick wall. At that point, there's nothing you can say or do to change their mind. And when you come across somebody who is convinced, absolutely convinced that, oh, look, there's a door over there. That door leads to another room. In that room, there is a chair. That chair is purple with pink polka dots. But we can't get in that room because the door is locked and nobody has the key, and we can't break it down. You must listen to me when I tell you that that chair is purple with pink polka dots. Well, how do you know? Because I feel it. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to need a little bit more evidence than that. Oh, so you don't believe me? I'm going to punish you if you don't believe me. there it is. That's most religions in a nutshell right there. And it's a horrible thing. And you were talking about maturity. Well, the Christians, they went through a phase of maturity. They're not completely matured out, but they're a lot calmer than they used to be. And they went around killing each other based on slight variations of their own beliefs. There were wars. There was the crusade. It was horrible. And the Islamic faith, the Muslims, they're going through the same thing. The only difference is they have automatic weapons and bombs. They don't have spears and swords, you know. Well, they still have swords, but we won't get into that. But the point is that they haven't gone through that maturity phase, and they have a lot more deadlier weapons. And until they come out of that phase, I mean, here's a prime example of it. In Afghanistan, one of the higher officials said that it was a horrible thing that happened in Paris. You know, that's not, you know, how Muslims should behave. And yet they're enforcing the public flogging or lashing, whipping of a man who wrote a blog that asks questions about faith. And he has to have 1,000 lashes, and he gets 50 of them every Friday publicly, very hard. And they're going to be executing somebody else who insulted Islam. So you're telling me that you're a religion of peace and hurting your own people. I'm going to call you a liar, because in the Quran, there's actually a word that denotes a holy action that's approved, that's not frowned upon, and that is, you may lie to your enemies as long as you're doing it. And it's like, okay, so when you say religion of peace, yeah, I think you're full of shit.
Unfortunately, that's a big old pain in the butt. Joe, see, I've forgotten who we had agreed on. Yes, Joe.
Joseph.
Joey.
Joseph.
He's talking about me, I think.
Yes, Joey. I'll get you first.
Okay. Plain and simple, on the subject of the conversation, equal footing for every opinion. Look, I will gladly hold a conversation with absolute. Am I bad? Good. Okay. I will hold a conversation with anybody. Everybody should have a right to a conversation. The problem is that when you are no longer contributing to conversation, when you are no longer conversing, but rather just talking, and oftentimes worse, just slinging out all the mud you can, that's no longer constructive to the conversation. And at that point, you're out. That's it. If you're not helping, you're out. We'll gladly discuss with you, but if you're not going to discuss, then there's no point in the conversation, and your word is invalid.
Okay. Joseph?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that, you know, when you're getting into a discussion with somebody religious, you're not even speaking the same language, because it comes back to critical thinking. Either you can do it or you can't. If you can't think critically, your evaluation system is completely, it's emotion based. That's how you evaluate data. It's based on emotion. If you can think critically, you can compare two facts to each other and you can come to a conclusion. But religious people don't do that. They just judge things on the emotional value it has in them, and that's it. So there's no point in even throwing logic at them if they're not going to evaluate it. I mean, it just won't work. It's just going to bounce off them. And that's what Ken Ham was saying about that. That was quite important, actually, when he said, you can never change my mind. it's an actual physical thing in the human brain. Using the frontal lobes, that's what evaluates two neurons, one against each other. And if you don't use this, then there's going to be no connection. That's where cognitive dissonance comes from, and that's where it's without critical thinking, it can exist in all impunity. I don't know how to say, but nothing can ever be done to eliminate it.
Close enough. Chris, you had something also.
Yeah, certainly on the point of race about having a debate or a conversation with someone who's not willing to mind. I think up to a certain point there can be a value in some of these conversations where even if you're not, someone's not going to change their mind, you may bring them to be able to get them to a point where they can appreciate that there are in fact other points of view out there, things that they may not have been aware of or not have considered. And the other thing is, if there's anyone else present, if it's a public conversation or a debate, then if you conduct yourself well and make good, strong arguments, and the other person's just like, I have a book, they really don't look so good on there, and so it can be more for the benefit of other people or the audience watching.
And if there's two people, if you've got, I'm coming back to a debate. Remember the debate between Sai and Matt Dillahunty?
Oh, yes.
If you have a religious person watching the debate and somebody and an atheist or somebody capable of critical thought, if they're both watching the debate, they'll both get the impression that their guy won. Because on an emotional level, perhaps Sai's not the best example. I think Matt Slick's a better example because he's always scoffing at his opponent, and that sort of thing. It earns points with his audience, whereas for Matt Dillahunty, it's like logical. Reasoning that wins for him.
Yeah.
So it's not
Chris,
even the same language.
Yeah, Chris, you were going to say?
I just want to follow up to what Joe was saying. This is a very good example on this. Is on I think it's normally a video like podcast by a guy called Bible Thumping Wingnut. You can find him on Google, and Matt Slick does a lot of debates there on there, including one recently with Aaron Ra and Matt Dillahunty, two separate debates. They're quite good, but also at the end of the debate, Matt and the host and maybe someone else from sort of involved in the show will have a sort of discussion about the debate on there. And I find as someone watching as an atheist with I hope fairly decent critical thinking skills. I was very much impressed by the job that Matt Dillahunty had done in the debate. But it does give you a perception of how the other side can see it. I'm not entirely sure how honest they are being in this sort of post-debate thing, but it is a very interesting perspective that it gives you.
Well, actually, I was able to speak to Aaron Ra about his time with Matt Slick, and if anybody saw that, Aaron actually left at the end, and Aaron said, Slick kept trying to redefine what the word faith meant and trying to pin it on Aaron that he had some kind of faith, and he would not accept that his quote definition was not the correct way to look at things. And that's when Aaron said, I realized that he was not going to engage in an intellectually honest manner, and there was no point in continuing then, because anything that Aaron said was just going to be twisted into what Slick wanted, and that's why Aaron left the debate, because it had ceased to become a debate, and that I can understand. Like, I was going to watch, and I came in just as Aaron was leaving, and the two, as you say, they sat around after the debate, and they were like, well, if that's a good atheist debater, well, I don't know what the rest of them are, because he was terrible. And it was just a bunch of is a circle jerk is basically what it was. And it was them patting each other on the back and like, ooh, what a bad atheist and all of that crap. And they're just, those guys make me mad, because they don't debate, they change the meanings of words, they move the goalposts, and it's just, it's slimy. Apologetics like that, slimy to me. But at least I had the opportunity to talk to Aaron about it, and that was his reasoning for leaving that debate. And I got to talk to Matt Dillahunty as well, and it's the same kind of thing. They twist words, and it's like a game to them, almost, to see how frustrated they can make the atheist, and then they can all pat themselves, oh, look, see, we made that nasty old atheist got angry, just like we thought they would, because they're all angry atheists. And it's just a twisted game to them.
Yep, there's an internet meme photo manipulation that's gone around for a long time, and you guys can look it up for yourselves. And it's a picture of a guy trying to play chess with, I'll just read off what it says. Arguing with Christians, and at this point you can pretty well replace any fundamentalist group. It doesn't matter if it's religious or otherwise. It's like playing chess with a pigeon. No matter how good I am at chess, the pigeon is just going to knock over the pieces, crap on the board, and strut around like it's victorious. That's
the best analogy I've ever heard to describe it.
Slick.
It's true. Unfortunately, it's all too true, and we've heard about people like this all over the place. Katie, again, everybody, please understand, we've got a lot of people and a lot of opinions, and trying to be able to bounce around to everybody quickly is not easy this time. So if it's taking a little bit of time for me to get to everybody, please understand. I'm trying really hard to make sure that I'm as fair as I can. Katie, for you, this very self-same idea of nobody wants to listen, and everybody wants to play word games and try and play it out. And by the way, Gaijin Nippon, I will be getting to your thing in just a second. I did see it over there. I did select it. I'll get to you in a couple of seconds. Katie, have you had to deal with people like that who are just like, they'll strut all over the place and peacock it all out and just not know what in the hell they're talking about?
Oh, absolutely, especially here in this geographical area. You cannot have a conversation, and you can't sit and have a discussion. Now, example that's off in a totally different direction, but it was a wonderful debate, and I saw where it worked. It wasn't IQ squared, it was something similar, but they were actually debating vegetarianism versus eating meat. And they did a vote before the debate and after the debate, but it was a very good, calm debate. Both debaters were kind of on the same page as far as handing out logic and reasons and examples of why they thought and felt what they did. And the final vote had changed drastically. They were really able to change people's minds. But when you're debating something as emotionally charged as religion or politics, you're talking to a bunch of deaf people.
As somebody who spent 6 years down in Georgia, I can back this up.
Yeah, that's the most unfortunate part about the whole damn thing, is that as much as we would like to be able to say, look, we can talk with you about it, just listen, it's so incredibly frustrating and difficult to get past the original wall, which is kind of taking us away from where I was originally intending to go, but that's kind of the beauty and the detriment to the show. You never know quite where the journey is going to take you, so that's okay.
Well, when you think about it, Shuj,
yes, Dal.
What we're doing here, like the discourse, the questioning, the having a conversation about subjects like this, it does kind of fall into what some people classify as blasphemy. When you think about it,
absolutely.
The fact that we've even asked the question, that we're even having a discussion on any aspect of it. In some countries, this could get us all shot. Thankfully, not here anyway.
Or at least minimally, not by the officials.
Yeah, well, although I did hear that, and Heretic, you can back me up on this one, I believe Canada still has blasphemy laws on the books.
We do. It's in the form of, it's not as specific as, say, Pakistan, where if you blaspheme Allah or whatever, you can get killed. But it's in a form of, I think, libel, blasphemous libel, I believe. And then there's also our hate speech laws, which can be construed as a type of blasphemy law. There is a renewed push due to these events to get those off the books, thankfully, because honestly, there's no place for that. I mean, look at, and I really wanted to mention it, and Tech brought it up sort of in passing, but look at poor Rafe Badawi. Yeah. That is the most disgusting thing, and my friend Paul actually interviewed his wife Ensaf a few months ago, and what that family is having to go through is disgusting. And you know what he did? He opened a website to discuss secularism, not even, hey, Allah sucks, or I'm an atheist, or anything like that. It was, hey, can we look at things from a secular point of view? And that poor man is sentenced to 10 years in jail, 1,000 freaking lashes, and $250,000 in fines. Like, it just boggles my mind to think that that poor man has to go through that. And his poor wife and children, he has 3 little children, that have to, endure the thought that their husband and father is being beaten by these savages every week for something that what we are doing right now is beyond what he did.
Yeah, what you're talking about is starting a conversation at the 0 point.
Yes.
Not even at the negative point, just at a 0 point, and even that is beyond the pale. Chris, did I hear that you wanted to chime in a couple of moments ago too?
Yes, certainly. Generally, in a lot of these conversations, there may be issues which members of the panel disagree on, but we can at least respect each other to the point of being able to have a civilized discussion about this. And I've seen a number of posts on sort of Twitter and on Facebook from accounts that appear to be from Muslims. I don't know whether or not any of these are trolls, but they're basically saying that Islam respects other religions and other people's points of view. And this seems to be the case right up until it's something that they disagree with. And unfortunately, you're not actually respecting other people's viewpoints until you come across someone whose views you disagree with, and you can still respect them as a person.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joey.
Okay, just one thing I'd like to bring up. as far as Muslim percentages worldwide, here's something that might boggle your mind. About 70% of the world's Muslims are in what we call Southeast Asia. Malaysia, Indonesia, and you don't see this kind of stuff happening there. As far as
yes, you do.
not to this degree. I'm just saying that, you know, as far as these radically outspoken matters, you see them mostly coming from the less than 20% of the Muslims that actually live in the Middle East. I'm starting to think if we could just get them some air conditioning, things might just be a lot easier.
Well, now here's the problem. When you start to deal with numbers, and this is something that I learned from my wife, numbers don't lie. What you think the numbers say can be made to say anything you want them to. Is it that the countries where the majority religion is in power, this kind of thing doesn't happen? That's possible. It's also possible that the reporting simply doesn't happen and it's swept under the rug, so nothing comes out, so you don't know about it, which is also a possible. But unfortunately, there's no way of really knowing without putting somebody into harm's way to try to find out. I mean, let's face it, during World War II, some people volunteered to be captured by the Nazis in order to infiltrate the camps and to find out how bad it was for the Jews. And when they finally made it out, the British government said, "You got to be kidding me. There's no way that that could possibly be the numbers that you're talking about." Meanwhile, the guys had the numbers pretty well right. But that's a whole other piece. Now, over on the Q&A system, and of course, by the way, thank you, of course, for watching and chiming in. Gaijin Nippon, and please forgive me for saying it that way. The only way that I can say it properly is to use the proper pronunciation, so again, please forgive me. Saying Islam isn't evil, just the crazy nutballs who take it a different way. Yes, and we kind of talked on that a little while ago, but there is also the problem of inherent in the system, so to speak, to use somebody else's phrase, the insanity, and I don't want to use that term lightly, the barbarity, I guess is probably a better term for it, is inherent in the system. Christianity also has laws and regulations that are barbaric in its system. Tech, remind me. The Talmud, am I saying that right? The Torah is the holy piece.
The Torah for Judaism?
Yes.
Yeah, they have their book. What was the question about the Torah? Because I kind of blanked out a little bit.
No, I'm trying to remember if I've got the name correct. It is the Torah. It would be the I think it's the Talmud is what it's referred to for the Christians.
I don't know about the Christians. I know there's also another book in addition to the Torah. It's a companion book, if you will, and it explains things and it sets things out in. It's it's supposed to provide insight and clarification into the Torah.
So it's basically an appendix.
An appendix, encyclopedia, dictionary, all of the source, all of it rolled into one. And it's you know, if you were to print it out in the same font size, it's exponentially larger than the Torah.
The annotations, they outweigh the size of the book itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Joe.
The Talmud could be referred to as the core text of the Torah. Think of not quite the same, but think of it along the same lines as, say, the Ten Commandments for Christianity, rather as opposed to the Bible.
So effectively, it's the core of the three main Abrahamic religions.
Yes.
Okay.
See, I always thought the helmet was the lord of the Spaceball Armada.
You would be correct.
That's blasphemous. You shall be put to death.
How many assholes do we have on this ship?
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes. My favorite scene.
Gunners mate first class. Philip asshole, sir.
Who made that man an ass? Who made that man a gunner? I did, sir. He's my nephew.
Now, here's the best part about the show. We can say stuff like this. It doesn't matter. Now, admittedly, here in the U.S., the laws as are dictated are, and again, poor choice of terminology on my part, basically say that we're allowed to do this. And if somebody gets upset about it, oh well. Generally speaking, for Canada, it's kind of pretty much the same. And truth be told, for most of the Western world, for the most part, we've generally speaking, we have a reasonable expectation that if we piss somebody off, yeah, we're probably going to get yelled at, but generally speaking, that should be all we should worry about.
I'd like to think up here we're still kind of the mindset that the people who go out on the street and proselytize and street preach and, you know, have the megaphone, the majority of us just look at them and go, "You're a screwball, man."
Sure.
You know, that's what I grew up with. Like I see street preachers when I travel down in the U.S. I see, man, have I seen some shit? But anyways, I look at the people like that. And I just go like, you guys are insane. And I think up here in Canada, I think we still have a lot of that mindset that when we see these outspoken individuals, and I'm being nice here, okay? Give me some credit. We still give them that look like, dude, what is your major malfunction?
We do. The thing that I think a lot of that causes a lot of problems, though, and not so much up here, but I think it happens a lot with right-wingers in the States and with Islam, and that is the idea that we have a right to not be offended. And I'm sorry, that does not exist. And, you know, if you have an ideology that is not part of the mainstream where you are, then you should expect that it is going to be examined and potentially criticized and even ridiculed. I mean, I'm a freaking atheist. I get told I'm an idiot and I'm a fool and I'm Satan's minion and all kinds of shit like that. I expect it and I get over it. You know, I'm not going to go and blow up a church because somebody told me I'm going to go to hell. And I think that's where a lot of these issues come from, is there's this expectation that, well, I can't be offended because that's my religion. Well, bull. You know, it's an ideology that deserves criticism just as much as, you know, communism or unrestrained capitalism or whatever. And that's something I take issue with.
Freedom of speech does not protect you from the consequences.
Hold on. Wallflower, I see you waving up. What have you got?
Okay. I got to turn my camera off because if I don't, everything will be choppy. I wanted to try and bring this kind of back to the question that we all like had an ADD moment and kind of got away from for a minute. I may think differently as far as whether or not Islam is evil, so I'm going to leave that out. But I do want to put in two things here. One of them is, it doesn't matter how good or humanistic your religion is if it can be interpreted in multiple ways. If you cannot have a God that can give you a clear and direct understanding of what his intentions are, if you have such a shift between your religions that you literally have groups that claim to follow the same God and the same prophet killing each other over perceived differences in translation, for instance. Or if you can look at one sentence and say, well, this says this. This says that it's okay to lie to unbelievers and, for instance, perform taqiyya, which basically lie until you have the numbers to slaughter people. And then another guy can come in and go, oh, no, that's not what that says. That says something else. That's the equivalent of being able to go, well, this says that the sky is blue. Oh, but my interpretation says that it's an off purple. And this guy's interpretation says it's freaking teal. Only one of you can be right, and unfortunately it's going to come to a point where you're going to end up blowing each other up over the color of the sky. The religion itself may not be evil, but the fact that it can be interpreted in such a way, and it can be interpreted apparently so convincingly to so many people, that you have people who are willing to blow themselves up over a cartoon, kind of makes not the individual religion, but the concept of it, of religion as a whole, basically subject to being evil.
Okay. Joseph, I'm going to get you first. Joey, I'll get you immediately after.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that actually, okay, about all these interpretations and everything, the content doesn't even matter. What it comes down to is giving orders. Who's following the orders? That's it. That's all it is. And actually the content, it's just the action between the listener and the preacher, the follower and the preacher. It's just that action. And actually what they're talking about doesn't even matter. It's just the fact that one person is just blindly following another, and that's it.
Joey?
And see, that's why they got on Gutenberg's case so much. To follow what Shujin had done earlier, to bring this into meme sense, there's a wonderful meme going around, one of the wonderful oil paintings of Jesus preaching on Sinai, where he's preaching to the folks, and he says, love thy neighbor like he's your brother. And of course somebody put in there, well, what if they're gay or atheist? Did I fucking stutter?
Now, that's wonderful, because that brings us over to one other piece that I wanted to hit before we cap us all off over here. There is a wonderful quote from Stephen Fry, who is a lovely gentleman, who is a fascinating speaker, and someone that I would love the opportunity of shaking the hand of, who said, according to this quote, "It's now very common to hear people say, 'I'm rather offended by that,' as if that gives them certain rights. It's actually nothing more than a whine. I find that offensive. It has no meaning. It has no purpose. It has no reason to be respected as a phrase. I am offended by that." Well, so fucking what? It boils down exactly to that. It's a wonderful statement to basically say, okay, good, you're offended. All right, you told me how you feel. Now what? So what? Yeah, okay. Is there a question in there? And if you were to go to somebody and say, is there a question? I mean, we've experienced it from people who are our elders, our parents, our teachers, who will follow up with a blank stare once you've gone ahead and you stomped your foot and say, and? Because the answer isn't obvious to somebody who's been following along, because they don't have the internal dialogue that you've been doing, which is usually summed up in the word petulance. And assuming that I'm using the correct term and pronouncing it even properly, it comes down to, you want to have your little hissy fit, go right ahead. I'm not going to stop you, and I'm not going to help you. You want to go ahead and you want to have a hissy fit, go right ahead. Here's some water. when you're done, crying your eyes out and you need more to drink, I've got it for you. Well, actually, it's empty right now. Sorry. And it's that color because I was drinking Tang. So hush. It's a whole other thing for later. Which, that's something I want to talk about. I want to talk about something happier later. For instance, the dragon capsule going up again. But that's another piece for later.
If I may add something on the being offended part.
Yes.
On there are always, as well as it being rather meaningless, as Stephen Fry said, saying that you're offended can actually be very counterproductive, or acting offended because you've just shown someone exactly which button they need to press in order to wind you up. And I saw this very much in the Matt Slick versus Aaron Ra debate on the Bible Thumping Wingnut show, that Aaron made very clear his definitions of faith and why he didn't feel it applied to him. But Matt Slick just used that to wind him up in a very much a schoolyard fashion. And as everyone probably knows, Muslims are not very keen on depictions of the Prophet. If they hadn't made such a fuss of this, things like Charlie Hebdo, the Danish cartoons from a few years ago, the Muhammad Goes to a Gay Bar video that was also done in Sweden, these things would never have been heard of outside, like, the small readership of these publications or people who went to those presentations, and no one would have ever thought of doing an Everyone Draw Muhammad Day on Facebook and Flickr and whatever. And it's, raging that you're offended by something, in some cases just encourages people to wind you up more, particularly if it's something that they perceive as being ridiculous.
Well, I can attest to that. I'd never heard of Charlie Hebdo at all, and I never would have. And because of this and the whining and the violence, I now have a very, very unflattering caricature of Muhammad as my banner on Facebook, and it's going to stay there for a while. And I don't really care.
Yeah, before we see about signing out through this, the I'm offended statement and such. Let me hit the rest of the panel before we get through out of over here. Katie, was there anything you'd like to add on to that one?
Yes, actually, I think it was my daughter that made a post where there was some speculation that it wasn't the blasphemy that they were so offended at, it was just an excuse because they are trying to start a war. And if they can find an excuse to rattle anyone's cage, that they're trying to start a holy war, and they're very determined to do that. And there may be some validity to that train of thought.
Now you're making me think of the term here of death by cop, or suicide by cop, I guess is the term I'm looking for. Joey, did you want to pop anything onto this one too?
Nothing that I haven't popped on before. I mean, I had brought that exact same quote on a previous show at some point, and honestly, like I was saying earlier, to have a conversation then say, well, that offends me, unless you're going to have something constructive attached to that, pardon my language, but nobody gives a shit.
That's probably one of the nicest things we could say at this point.
Anybody,
Joseph.
yeah, anybody who says, really for me, somebody who says I'm offended, they're just being a bully. It just comes down to that. because they're demanding respect. They call it that. But what they're actually asking you to do is follow their rules. So they're trying to impose their list or book or whatever of rules on you, who doesn't, normally you wouldn't even pay any attention or maybe even know it exists. So at the same time, it's proselytization and it's bullying at the same time, all rolled up into one.
Unrenowned Tech, anything you want to add on that one?
Did he died?
He might have fallen asleep.
Ladies and gentlemen, the sleeping atheist.
Hey, that's why I drank a whole pot of coffee, okay?
Okay,
well,
we'll
in Tech's defense, he is sick, so like he said he was meted up before the show, so.
Yeah, so it's entirely possible. Wallflower, sure. Anything last minute you want to add on to that whole offense?
Yeah, as far as the I'm offended argument, why are you offended? If you're going to tell me that you're offended, tell me why. If you're offended because I made your Sky Daddy cry, then why does that really affect you? You're not the one committing the sin. It has nothing to do with you. If your job, as with a lot of evangelical Christians is concerned, is to try and bring me closer to your God, showing me that, and I'll bring this around to like a drawing. If I draw a stick figure of Muhammad, I have offended a Muslim, or Muslim, however you want to pronounce it. And it doesn't have to be an offensive drawing. I have offended him because I drew the prophet. And how childish is that?
I'd like to add that sorry.
Is equivalent to my 3-year-old nephew getting mad because you said Thomas looks funny. Thomas the choo-choo train sounds funny. Then you're not going to bring me around to any sort of, I don't even know. See, but the Amtrak just hit the frickin' wall there.
See, it happens to us all. Joseph, yes, real quick.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, this thing against drawing Muhammad, it's only been around since the 15th century. They decided it's recent.
It's not actually, there's nothing that I've read so far that's written directly down. It's the guy, I think 2 guys after Muhammad died or some shit like that.
What do you mean written?
Well, my understanding is that it's in order to keep people from venerating Muhammad above Allah. But then if you're going to kill people for drawing Muhammad, you've already venerated him above Allah.
That's a good point. Dallin, any last item you want on this whole bully piece?
I think just to piggyback onto what Wallflower said, if you're having a conversation with somebody and they say they're offended, okay, first thing, why? Second thing, what parts? And third thing, this is me not giving a shit.
Right. And thanks for accusing me of, because in a way they're hinting that you actually had that intention of offending them.
Well, that's just it. I mean, you could say...
What about me?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you could say something.
Well,
this is the problem when you're having a conversation with anybody, is that you could potentially say something that they may find offensive. People have talked to me. I've been offended by listening to some people, but I have not started screaming and picking up my baseball bat or the trophy sword that I have and start, trying to hack people to pieces. You take it in stride. You move on. And it's like you said right at the beginning, it comes down to maturity. If something offends them and they suddenly feel the need to fly into this, like, rage over that, then they've got an awful lot of growing up to do. But unfortunately, in this day and age, these children, and I will call them that, they have access to some pretty serious hardware.
That's true. Chris, you would like to chime in and cap
I
itself?
was going to do 2 points. First, I saw we got someone in the chat identifying as Mormon, and I just wondered if, because I'm not an expert on this, if they're still around, if they would take any particular offence if I was to, say I'm really not a fan of Joseph Smith, or whatever. The other point was to say, I do sometimes if someone says something that I find offensive, there are occasions where I will raise it and maybe try and explain this. This is the kind of distinction where someone's maybe saying something derogatory or prejudicial, or racist or horribly sexist, homophobic, that kind of thing. And I'll try and position it in the terms of, this is, hurtful to this group of people. But I would say it's not something that I would ever take the angry approach about.
There we go. Joey, yeah, I'll give you one last moment over here.
One quick thing, being that this is part of my graphic design instruction, I know something a little bit about this. Just so that we're not just picking on the Muslims here, there was a time where in Constantinople, after the Great Schism, one of the habits that had started forming was, thank you, Down, was something called iconography, where there were these beautiful, beautiful icons made depicting Christ and all that, and for a time, those in power had said, no, you can't do that. That is blasphemous. And they went around destroying these icons, these beautiful pieces of art, and even going so far as to cutting the hands off of people for making them. So, it's not just the Muslims.
No.
Actually, originally, weren't those icons created because most of the empire was largely illiterate? I believe the icons were actually created originally as an intention for educational purposes, to actually bring the gospel, if you'll pardon the term, to the people. Okay, but then some priests got their panties in a wad over it.
Okay, and don't forget that actually owning a Bible for anybody who's non-clergy was a punishable crime until the 15th century, until Gutenberg.
And translating the Bible out of Latin was punishable by death for a long time as well.
And considering it was originally written in Greek?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah, let that stew for a little bit.
And here's
Latin.
Here's where it gets to be amazingly wonderful, and this is where I'm going to cap it all off. And for the time being, to kind of help this out, everybody, if you all make sure that you're all muted out for the moment, because I'm going to call you all in momentarily for our closing. The Bible, the Talmud, the Quran, so many of these have faded into antiquity, into obscurity, to where the origination points are. Minimally, we can easily say, what was the Bible originally written in? Well, Latin. Well, okay, before Gutenberg, what was it? It was Hebrew and Greek, and, well, what was it before that? It could have been Sanskrit, and before that. Well, why are you asking? Because we don't have one that says first edition. And why is that? It's because it's been who only knows how many ways out. We don't know. We can't know at this point. Without actually going back, how the hell could we possibly know? And for anybody that wants to go ahead and make a time machine to go back, don't forget, yes, you have to navigate the time streams in order to get to the right date, but don't forget, you've also got to navigate where you're going to be on the Earth. And don't forget, the Earth has also been traveling around the solar system and around the Milky Way, so you need to do a little bit more computational pieces. After all, Back to the Future 2, I don't remember how much Doc actually took into account how far the Earth was traveling, because if he didn't, Einstein would have been quite a big smear under the ground. Or up in the air.
Yeah, and then
Or-
you have to be very careful on the possibility of dating your mother.
which is a whole other piece for
All
later.
wibbly wobbly and timey wimey.
Yeah, there's a fascinating science fiction story on that called All You Zombies by Robert Heinlein. I'd recommend that to anyone.
So, what I had decided that we were going to do as my own little vain piece, my hope that we could make a small stand, a little bit of a difference, is to put together a small contingent of podcasters, bloggers, vlogcasters, whatever. Over the next couple of days, I'm inviting folks to take part in this, to send me their video so that I can make a small compilation that can then be shared to anyone and everyone that wants to take part. I was hoping that I'd be able to get a number of people. I don't know how many I'll be able to get over the next couple of days, but I will invite those of you that want to, please video record yourself in the following format, and for the people on the panel to finally do the same with me. Please, of course, over here on the panel, if you would mute yourselves out, what I will ask for everyone to do, after I announce you, pause 3 seconds, and announce. For all of us, if you would like to announce yourself by your name or handle, that's fine. But each of us to announce. I am Suis Charlie. Je suis Charlie. Wallflower, you get first dibs.
I am the talking wallflower. Je suis Charlie.
Katie, you get your chance.
I am Katie. Je suis Charlie.
Thank you. Joey, your turn.
I am Joseph Muret. Je suis Charlie un plus. Allez-vous faire foutre, connard?
I'm not quite sure, but we'll take it. Joseph?
Je m'appelle Joseph et je suis Charlie.
Thank you. Unbeknown Tech, I don't know if you're there and awake, but I'll give you your chance.
Hold on, I hit the wrong button. I'm here. Okay. For sounding off, it's real simple. When you try to silence those that don't agree with you, you only make them louder. I am Charlie. Good night, everybody.
I'll take that. Heretic Woman.
Je m'appelle Heretic Woman. Je suis Charlie. Et je suis Rêve.
Thank you, hon. Dallin.
The only way to combat sheer stupidity is with mockery. My name is Dallin. Je suis Charlie.
Thank you. And Chris.
Je m'appelle Christophe, and je suis Charlie.
Thank you all. As always, everyone, thank you for taking the time to watch us. We know full well this is not what most would call a sexy vlogcast, but we do still believe that our opinions, our perspectives matter and are worth the time. If you would like to participate in this, please get in contact with me. If you'd like to record yourself one way or another, you can send your videos to me, a link to shujintribble@gmail.com, on Twitter as @shujintribble, and on YouTube, of course, if you'd like to link me over to it, that's perfectly fine. I would like to thank the panel this evening for their time very quickly. Wallflower, thank you for your time, man. Katie, thank you for your time. Joey, thank you.
As always,
Joseph.
you know what? Bacon jerky, just for you guys.
Joseph, thank you. And, of course, stay safe.
Yeah, thank you.
Unrenowned Tech, take care of yourself. Get better.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, Joe, if you like the bacon jerky, Jack Links makes a jerked pork barbecue. That is fantastic.
Oh my. I am going to avoid the puns there.
Heretic Woman, thank you, hon. Stay warm.
I'm trying. You're welcome.
Dellen, thank you so very much for your time.
Yeah, glad to be here as always.
And Chris, thank you and good morning.
Good morning and great to be here again.
For all of you, of course, please, please stay safe. Thank you for keeping the lines of communication open. That is one of our greatest advances, being able to just talk. It solves so many things. If you feel so inclined to consider talking with or listening to others, of course, besides us, there are many, many others, depending as to what kind of things you would like to talk about, as well as to what kind of tone. Everything from the amazing atheist, the scathing atheist, atheist on air, beyond the trailer park, Koranify Me, Thomas and the Bible, of course, all the way out to the Ramen, the atheist experience, skeptics, skepticons, and of course, our good friend over there, Seth, at The Thinking Atheist. There are more voices than you know, more perspectives, and more styles than you can believe. And if it turns out there's one out there that doesn't suit you, put your own voice out there. Or join us. Let me know that you'd like to have your voice out there if you're not ready for whatever reason, and we will give you your place. That's one of the beautiful things about this whole thing. We're not going to tell you that you're wrong. We're going to tell you we don't agree. And there's nothing wrong with that. As always, I say my goodnights for all of you. And I say my goodnights for my lady too. Because 9.5 years on, I am still in love. Matane Fujin, I love you and I miss you. Dream of me. And of course, to all of you, I wish you all the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. On behalf of the entire panel, stay safe. And to all the families who were affected, we wish you peace. We wish you closure. And to our brothers and sisters of the Islamic faiths, we don't agree with you, but we also don't blame all of you. Please don't blame all of us. Until the very next time we get together, everyone, good night.